morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio this morning, and we have a lot to cover. First of all, we'll be joined by Melissa Edwards and Susan Walker, both from Cornell Cooperative Extension of Steuben County. They have Farm Trail Days coming up on September 23rd. And they're going to tell us all about that, what that means. That's in just a little bit. We have a lot of the political scene, news scene to get to as well. As always, you can reach out to me during the discussion and weigh in. Good. Audio sounding good. Video's looking good. So appreciate you reaching out right off the jump of the program. Okay, here we go. Let's start with this because I don't think this comes as a surprise to most of us. I think we're probably all in the same boat here. 90%, over 90% of Americans have cut spending and plan that through the holidays, which is obviously not good for businesses and various stores that depend on this for the end of their year. But most American adults have cut spending this year, according to a new CNBC Morning Consult survey, which also revealed that consumers plan to stay frugal throughout the holidays. 92% of adults have cut back on discretionary spending over the past 6 months. Consumers are more skittish when shopping for clothes, dining out at restaurants, 63% and 62% respectively. More than 3/4 of respondents, that's 76%, plan to cut back spending on non-essential items over the next 6 months during retailers, all important holiday season, of course. Now, the reason I mention this, and groceries, by the way, was the next biggest budget reduction, with 54% of respondents saying they're spending less at the supermarket. And the reason I bring this up is not to discourage you, but it's something that we've talked about extensively, this idea that the media keeps pushing that, never mind, I know it looks really expensive, and I know that you're struggling to survive, but you're wrong. Everything is okay. And that's one of the messages that the ad that the Biden administration put out during the beginning of football season, that was one of their messages, that Bidenomics is working. But much like what we talk about with bail reform and public safety, they can tell us one thing, but we feel the truth. And the reason I mention that, and I know we're starting off pretty heavy this morning, but Carol Roth from Fox News, it's almost as if she watches this program because she has echoed a sentiment that we have brought up numerous times, not just myself, but viewers as well when they reach out to contact me. And the context here is, and let me put up on screen, while you struggle with inflation, smug elites say, let them eat cake. Now, of course, let them eat cake. I don't say that often. It's kind of become a little trite, little cliche, but I don't knock Carol Roth for using it because it really works in this piece. So this is kind of an in-depth look, and I don't want to run too late, so I'm going to take a break and we're going to talk about this when we come back. There's also, it's kind of eerie how accurate we are on this program sometimes. There's a story that I just have to bring up to you, and that's coming up in a little bit, and it regards former President Trump and a recent interview he had on Meet the Press. You may, if you watch this program, may know where I'm going with this, and the idea of giving the former president the lead candidate in the Republican nominating process of primaries, giving him a quote-unquote platform, which is a term that we hear a lot. One of the reasons why I don't believe they're going to cover his rallies or cover much of his campaign is because last time they thought it was all a joke. And then it started to resonate with people. And so now they have an opportunity to say, well, we don't believe he should have that platform. And tying right into that, again, I know I talk about a lot, tying right into that, it's almost like they were listening to the program as well, because we have a piece about that coming up in just a little bit. But let me take our first break, and then we'll be back. As I said, coming up in just a little bit, we'll be talking with Melissa Edwards and Susan Walker from Cornell Cooperative Extension. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for the whole program. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. We received our first virtual wave. You can text a wave to that number. We'd appreciate it. Okay, so the idea of Carol Roth, really echoing what we've been saying so long on this program, is, and again, it's at Fox News if you want to read the full thing for yourself. It's in an opinion piece, is that never mind what you're feeling, that the economy is actually very good, and they just don't understand. This is what I love about her piece specifically, is the line, in the eyes of the elite, your sophistication level, not inflation, is the true problem. The August CPI numbers were even hotter than the economic consensus expected, showing inflation to be a persistent issue for Americans. Now, regardless of the reported figures, which have, with the formula they've used, has changed so much of the year to manipulate, just like polling during a presidential year or really during any race, can be manipulated so easily by those that have something to benefit from the manipulation. Americans are struggling with food, housing, gas, and other energy costs, and just the general cost of living. The concerns are real and they are valid. Perhaps except if you run in elite circles. If you're a Nobel Prize winning economist, or you're a college professor pulling in six figures. They're the ones that are saying, again, to use her term, not one that I use frequently, but let them eat cake. Take New York Times economist Paul Krugman. He just cannot understand the average American's response to inflation. Looking through his academic lens, he has been posting on social media about his apparent confusion on why voters are absolutely thrilled with this economy. He said many people trying to explain away voters' perception that inflation is rising amid historic decline by saying that people are actually talking about the level of prices, not the rate of change. It's possible that voters are less sophisticated, his term, less sophisticated than they were 40 years ago. Or maybe they live in an information environment that feeds false perceptions. So let's dissect that, and we'll use Carol Roth's piece here because I thought she had a very good way to describe this. So looking through the lens of the people trying to pay their bills, if you're not looking at it through the lens of academia, but through people like you and I trying to pay our bills, we're out of touch. We can't grasp it, according to Paul Krugman. In his eyes, in the eyes of the elite class, your sophistication level is the actual problem, not inflation, not the cost. The analogy, and this is Carol Roth, I want her to get full credit for this. The analogy that I've used before relates to weight, she said. Imagine that you had a relatively steady body weight over time. Then 1 year you gain 10 pounds. So you're pretty steady. And then 1 year you gain 10 pounds. Then the following year you gain 3.5 pounds. In Paul Krugman's world, in this academic elite lens, you should be thrilled because the growth in your weight gain has slowed. In reality, you're up 13.5 pounds and you can't fit into your pants anymore. Even if you gain 2 pounds the next year and settle in at 2 pounds per year after that, you will soon end up obese. Krugman wants to know why you wouldn't be celebrating that. Other smug academics and pundits have also tried to use cherry-picked charts and statistics to thumb their noses at the Americans who they believe are too stupid to assess their own economic reality. You don't get it. Yes, when you're filling up your gas tank, when you're getting your groceries, whatever you're doing to survive, you just don't understand how good this economy is. You don't understand the way they manipulate the statistics and the numbers. And they've been doing that for years. This is nothing new. It's just maybe more in full force and on display with that huge $25 million ad buy promoting Bidenomics. And we can go through other examples. But their lack of empathy for the average American shouldn't be a surprise. But it's a kind of attitude known to beget revolutions. Yeah, when people are struggling, and she's obviously not calling for anything violent, but what she's saying is it's the kind of thing that really makes the common person, in their eyes, get very, very frustrated. It's one of the reasons, let's face it, that led to President Trump. That the elite class, the Paul Krugmans of the world, did not fully understand what to use the former president's term, the common men and women in America, what they were experiencing, what they felt. Today, while you deal with a real financial issue caused by entities that get no blame whatsoever, like big government, like the the Inflation Reduction Act, the constant spending, you get it. You are also called the equivalent of stupid in the process by their hype men. To add insult to injury. So I thought, again, there's much more to that piece, but I thought it was so on point and something that we talked about so extensively here that I had to mention it to you. So again, that's Carol Roth at Fox News in the opinion section. While you struggle with inflation, smug elites say let them eat cake. We've got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk with Melissa Edwards and Susan Walker from Cornell Cooperative Extension of Steuben County. They have Farm Trail Days coming up on September 23rd. You're going to find out all about it when we come back from this break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and this morning we're talking about Farm Trail Days on September 23rd. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. So people that haven't been to Farm Trail Days in the past, I just learned that this is only the second year. What did they miss last year? What can they expect this year?
So Farm Trail Day is a diverse look at agriculture within our county.
Okay.
What it is, it's an educational day where local farms open up their homesteads for us to come out and experience what they do on their farm and what they bring to agriculture and agritourism in the county.
Are there different types of farms? Like, you've got a dairy farm. I don't really know all the farms, but is that really what it's about, seeing different kinds of farms?
Yeah, so we have, there's Autumn Mist Alpaca Farm.
Huh.
They have alpacas and petting zoo and stuff there. We have Mud Creek Bison,
Oh,
so then you have a bison farm. Ziegenvine is, they have their goat yoga and their goats and different things like that. So there is a wide variety of farms.
And each farm, I'm sure, offers different activities?
Yes, absolutely. There's petting zoos,
Okay.
opportunities to pet animals. There should be some hay rides. And then each farm offers their own products, so they each have their own farm store where you can buy local cheese, whatever they grow or produce. And there's fall games, and then, I don't know, anything else I'm missing?
Just nature walks,
Oh.
and some of them, and I don't.
Yeah.
I know one farm, Hemlock Ridge Farm, they're having the Historical Society come in and do the history of their one-room schoolhouse. So,
This kind of sounds like the perfect fall event, doesn't it?
yes.
It's a
Yeah.
really fun time
Yeah.
to bring your family.
So what should people know in the sense, I know that maybe something you would overlook, it's towards the end of summer, it's beginning of fall, maybe you come out to the farm and you're wearing flip-flops and things like that. Not the best idea, right? You're still going to be on a working farm.
Correct. You're going to want to wear appropriate footwear, dress for the weather. The weather forecast does look great for this weekend, nice
Okay.
and sunny, but still, be prepared for what you might run into or walk into.
And I know this depends, I believe, on the farm, but is there a cost?
Each farm varies. There are some fees for
Okay.
each farm, and you can find that right on our website.
And how many farms do you have participating?
We have 9 farms
Oh, that's great.
participating this year.
So do you find, I know this is only the second year, do you find that people try to go to more than one farm?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great opportunity to try to hit as many as you can and make a day of it. Have a good time.
Yeah, because you have something called the passport plan, I suppose. Could you explain that?
So the passport is just like a flyer that we created, and each farm is on the passport. And when you go to each farm, they will provide you a sticker if you ask for it to fill out your passport. And in order to win a prize at the end of Farm Trail Day, we ask to participate in 4 farms. Go to 4 farms, get a sticker from those farms, and then you can drop off your passport at the last farm you attend or mail it back into our office. And then the following week we'll, draw a name for, there's 2 prizes. There's an adult basket and a kid basket, and each farm is providing us goodies, produce, or products from their farm.
So this can really be a whole day's event
Yes.
Yeah.
for the whole family.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. How long have you been planning this event?
It's been a few months in the making.
Are you nervous?
No.
Yeah, it's all going to go smooth.
Yeah.
That's how well you're planned.
Yeah.
No kidding. Oh, that's great. One thing I did want to mention, because some will be offering products for sale, people should bring a cooler or a cooler bag, because we mentioned the shoes, but you never know what kind of goodies you want to come home with, I would think.
Correct. Yes, because there is cheese and meats, soaps. Just everybody has a little bit of different product that they sell. So yeah, be prepared, especially if it's going to be warm. Cooler bag.
It's Farm Trail Day, September 23rd. You can find out more at the website. What's the website?
Putknowledge2work.org.
Putknowledge2work.org, and you can find out which 9 farms are participating. Are you going to attend?
Yes.
Are you going to try to fill out the whole passport?
We'll fill out a passport, but we won't put it in for the
Oh,
prize.
okay. Just for the fun of it. So let me ask you this, just before we go, talking about Farm Trail Day, September 23rd, what are you looking forward to the most?
I think for me, it's just getting out and seeing all the different farms. I mean, I've been to these farms
course.
within the planning process, but really getting out there to see how they, what's the word I'm looking for? Operate. Thank you. Operate, and what they bring.
Sure. To our area.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, because that's one thing we kind of overlook our area about how kind of rural it is and really heavy on the agriculture. So this isn't kind of a good way to get back to nature,
Yeah.
right? So I have to ask you, what are you looking forward to the most?
I usually structure it based on what my kids are really interested
Yeah.
in, what
Yeah.
looks the most fun, because that makes the day go the best.
Sure.
So I think I'd look at what farms, what ones are offering what, see
Okay.
what they want to do, and then figure out location by location how I can make a good plan of
Sure.
the day and
Sure.
hit everything.
And again, you can find out more at...
Putknowledge2work.org.
Great. Well, thanks so much for being on the show. Have fun this weekend.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Akam. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning, and I want to thank our guests that were part of the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program, and that's Melissa Edwards, and Susan Walker from Cornell Cooperative Extension of Steuben County, and that sounds like a fun day, doesn't it? A busy day, mind you, but Farm Trail Days coming up on September the 23rd. Let's get back into the news of the day. Another interesting piece coming from this, specifically from the Washington Post, and we've talked about this for the last couple of weeks, which is this push by the media, and there's a quote in here that kind of says what we've been saying on the program, which is the media and some people that support the Democrat Party in general, they don't want Biden in there. They think that there's a better chance getting someone new, fresh, but also because there's no mechanism in there for a sitting president to be basically booted out and not able to run for re-election. It's really up to him, so they don't want to, at the end, if he runs, they don't want to have been seen as being too negative towards him and have their words used against him. So in the Washington Post, and I can't show it on the screen because it's behind a paywall, but it says, anxiety ripples through the Democratic Party over Biden. And this article essentially says that there's people looking for, well, could he drop out? Could they see a scenario where he drops out? A growing number of polls are showing voters concerned about President Biden's age. This is nothing new. I was actually kind of surprised by this piece, how they really go back into the vault with some things that have been talked about for quite a long time now. Democratic lawmakers have hesitated to offer full-throated endorsements of his running mate. You had Nancy Pelosi saying, well, Biden thinks she's the best running mate, and many others really not wanting to go all in, though I don't know if she makes a difference on that ticket one way or the other. But prominent commentators have ruminated on whether he should drop out of the presidential race. There hasn't been that many, but there have been some. We've tried to bring all of those to you. Sharon Sweda, the leader of the Democratic Party in Lorain County, Ohio, said he is in a period of his life, meaning President Biden, where passing and death is imminent. We are all on a ticking clock, but when you're at his age or at Trump's age, that clock is ticking a little faster, and that's a concern for voters. So a lot of the people they spoke to in here were asked to be anonymous, but they interviewed more than 30 lawmakers, activists, strategists, and other Democrats that this uncertainty in Biden persists. But few offered confident assessments that Biden's stubbornly low approval ratings would rebound before next year, which would be a major concern for them. And many conceded, and if you listen to Joe Scarborough last week, said that everybody off the air talked about Biden's age being a real concern for them. Now, that's Joe Scarborough. Take it with a grain of salt. I mean, he's not a Trump person by any means, but sometimes he says things, in my opinion, to get some attention back on him. That's why he switched so many times through the years from Republican to Democrat and et cetera. We're not going to get on a tangent over him. But the age is the most prominent factor in all this. Supporters and critics alike suggested that Biden's prospects may hinge, pardon me, on whether he can find a way to overcome a persistent and growing feeling in the electorate that his advanced age is his defining characteristic. And that will be difficult because you see the speeches he gives. And, we had that piece by Stephen Collinson last week, I think it was last week, maybe Monday, where he said, boy, the gaffes that Trump's making, could you imagine if if Biden did that, how much that would be covered? They haven't been covering this. I mean, most of the times when we bring it up on the program, it's coming from a more conservative outlet. It's not as if CNN and others are reporting on it. I'm going to give you an example of CNN's essentially bias here in just a little bit. But perhaps most troubling for Democrats, several recent surveys have found Biden running neck and neck with Trump, even though Trump, who is 3 years younger than Biden, faces 4 criminal indictments. But one House Democrat, I'm jumping around, this is quite a lengthy piece. Again, the Washington Post, I found it, I believe it was linked on Drudge Report this morning. But one House Democrat who spoke on the condition of anonymity to offer a candid assessment of Biden's candidacy, said he had heard concerns among fellow members as well as major Democrat donors about whether the president can sustain a grueling campaign and another 4 years in office. And Van Jones was the first to kind of sparked my thoughts on this. You think about 4 more years. That's obviously the slogan for everyone. 4 more years, 4 more years. But that means a whole nother year of campaigning. So essentially you're saying we want to give Biden almost 5.5 years. And we see some of even Democrats are saying in this piece from the Washington Post, you're seeing some major concerns about his health, his mental acuteness. Anyway, quote, you don't want to do anything. And this is the quote I mentioned earlier that echoes, I keep saying that this morning, what we've been saying. You don't want to do anything to undercut the person who is going to be your nominee. At the same time, these concerns are very real. So no one really wants to come right out and say it because, again, and Joe Semplinsky, the former congressman, brought this up last week. He can just say, I'm running. He's the incumbent. There's no system in place to say you're not running, Joe. It's up to Joe. So they don't want to be seen, and there's a few that have taken the chance, but want to be seen as, a few months from now, midway through next year, being used by whoever the Republican nominee is to take a dig at whoever their nominee is, meaning in this case Biden. One Democrat lawmaker, again anonymous, so I'm never a big fan of anonymous sources, but in this case it's from the Washington Post, saying the worst case scenario is we get past the nominating process with President Biden as the nominee, and then he's no longer able to continue on as the nominee. That's the nightmare scenario for Democrats. So kind of an interesting, lengthy piece at the Washington Post saying some of the things that we've been saying on the program, but also diving a little more in depth about the major concern in the Democrat Party with Joe Biden running for re-election. So let me ask you this. I know we have a lot of Democrats that watch this program. Weigh in. What are your thoughts about the potential of 5 more years, Joe Biden being president of the United States? What are your thoughts about Vice President Harris? It is interesting when Nancy Pelosi won't give a full-throated endorsement. Who was it? Jamie Ranskin? I always have trouble with his name. I believe he was the other one that said, well, maybe she's not going to be on the ticket. That's up to Joe. And you thought, well, that should be set in stone if they're running for re-election, or that's a really bad signal of what the administration and the Democrat Party think of Harris. But I bring this up before we go to break because maybe if you are a Democrat, and again, weigh in, maybe this is your option. I saw this at the Hollywood Reporter this morning, and it piqued my interest. Eric Clapton, legendary guitarist, raised $2 million for Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s campaign in California. Now, if you recall, I don't know if it was the early days of the lockdown or, it was early-ish on in COVID, that both Eric Clapton and Van Morrison, two legends, musical legends, came out with a song that was anti-lockdown, anti some of the government intervention when it came to COVID. So maybe not a surprise that he is looks to be supporting Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He performed at a fundraiser at a private estate in Brentwood, near Los Angeles. The event raised $2.2 million for Kennedy, $1 million for the campaign, and $1.2 million for a PAC, Political Action Committee, supporting the candidate. Now, at the event, or at least in a statement released, Kennedy said, "I'm deeply grateful to Eric Clapton for bringing his musical artistry and rebellious spirit to my gathering in Los Angeles last night. I sometimes think that in our divided society, it is music rather than any kind of intellectual agreement that has the most potential to bring us together again." And we talked about it last week, and I've received a lot of comments since about the fact that the White House is denying Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Secret Service protection, which many have pointed to being very wrong, specifically suggesting that Hunter Biden receives a huge motorcade. Robert F. Kennedy, who could have some major concerns with his family's history, and having a threat against him last week, I believe it was, that was very wrong-headed to deny him Secret Service protection. But anyway, I'll continue. Clapton joins a growing list of celebrities who have spoken out in support of Kennedy, and some of these I missed, of course, including his wife, you would hope, Cheryl Hines, Rob Schneider, the comedian, and Alicia Silverstone. Interesting. And some, I guess, think that Woody Harrelson is, but Woody saying something to the extent of, "I don't vote," basically, that he's an anarchist, but that he likes Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So maybe there's your option. But please weigh in on all of these now when we come back. I actually was pretty excited when I saw this piece this morning, because it's just so weird how you could not predict isn't even the right word, because it's so simple to know this is coming out. This piece by Oliver Darby at CNN, that you can't even pat yourself on the back that you predicted it ahead of time. But I think it's another great look into the media and what we're going to be seeing as we near 2024 and the presidential election, what we'll have to deal with on either side of the aisle. So that's coming up when we come back. Please stay with us. We're going fast this morning. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. I'm sorry I didn't play music right off of the commercial break because I was reading all the great comments that we received. First, and I think this is a really good point, picture music taking the wheel. We were just talking about Eric Clapton fundraising for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Picture music taking the wheel. The power of music pulling America together is possible. And case in point and they use the song "It's a Damn Shame," which I believe Oliver Anthony is doing right now, but Oliver Anthony also had that huge song, "Rich Men North of Richmond," which no one saw coming because I think he just filmed it on his cell phone, right? But that is a good point. That song, whatever you think of it, is bringing a lot of people together, and originally on both sides. And I know that he doesn't like being co-opted by any necessary political institution or party, but I think that's a fair point. The next comment that we received, and this is in reference to the economy and that piece at Fox News, it was saying that elites they think that we're stupid, right? And that we're just supposed to believe their numbers, that the economy isn't that bad. No matter what's happening at the grocery store, no matter what your bank account looks like, we're supposed to believe the Paul Krugmans of the world. So this is another message from a viewer, and thank you to everybody reaching out. It's not that we're stupid. It's because politicians are out of touch with reality because of their reliance on elite connections for donations, including $5,000 a plate dinners, sometimes even higher, as we know. Media has the same problem, living in their bubble of influence, fighting for big money advertisers. Local TV shows, like Frankly Speaking, use local advertisers getting income directly from we the people, meaning you, the viewer. Support your local companies that hold your values. Well, thank you for that message, and I think it's right on point, so I appreciate that. Keep those comments coming in because we've discussed a lot of issues. This is the one like I said, I've been excited to bring it up to you. There's no sense putting it up on the screen because it's basically one big ad because it's CNN. But Oliver Darcy has a piece, and again, this is too easy to predict, but we did talk about this directly. The new Meet the Press moderator, Kristen Welker, fails to meet the moment. They always use grandiose hyperbole type language like that. Excuse me. As Trump unleashes flurry of lies in his debut interview. So we talked about this extensively in the past. I don't believe that Trump's rallies will be covered, even if he is the nominee. At the end of the day, the media believes they made a mistake once in covering the nominee. They thought it was all a joke. They thought he stood no chance. So to them it was fun. They could kind of laugh at the rubes, and they didn't realize that it was reaching people that may not have normally heard that message. So in their mind, it backfired. Because in their bubble, everybody thought it was a joke. Going back to that viewer's point. In their bubble, it was all a joke. All their friends were laughing at it. That's all they were talking about at the cocktail parties, about how ridiculous these rallies are, full of hillbillies, right? And it just started resonating with people. So now, lately, and we started hearing it pretty soon after Biden won, which is, if Trump's running again, we can't give him the platform. We can't give him, and platform just means the opportunity to speak or the opportunity to reach voters and potential constituents or the American people. So this is how bad it is. Oliver Darcy is now turning on someone that was really being praised, which is Kristen Welker. The Kristen Welker era of Meet the Press is off to a bleak start. The high-stakes sit-down with disgraced former President Donald Trump was all risk and little reward for Welker as she assumed the esteemed moderator chair of Meet the Press. That's another thing if you're not overly familiar with media. Esteemed moderator chair. Just so you know, they're really, really full of themselves. That's why Stephen Collinson, is it Dino Badala? I always forget which one is CNN, which host or whatever their official title is. One of them always writes these lengthy pieces about the latest episode of Saturday Night Live and how groundbreaking it is. So the esteemed moderator chair of Meet the Press, okay, for the first time Sunday. That was their first day. Television executives I surveyed before and after the interview were baffled. The NBC News and Welker willfully chose to take on such a fraught assignment given Trump's notorious propensity to lie. You notice when Biden fabricates about his history, his whatever, we've had numerous examples of that, his past, whatever, that's not considered a propensity to lie. That's just, he's exaggerating, or that's what Joe always does. Isn't that interesting how the media can manipulate so easily, or justify, maybe is a better term, justify the bias that they have. Unfortunately, Welker failed spectacularly to meet the moment during her interview with Trump. What's that moment? That is to attack him, to make sure he has no opportunity to speak, maybe get that quite a few digs in there, call him a liar. That's what Oliver Darcy's looking for. And because Welker decides to give an interview to the lead candidate in the Republican primary and leaps and bounds number one in the Republican primary, that was somehow a punishable offense, that it is a bleak start to her time in that ever-exalted moderator chair of Meet the Press. Welker allowed Trump to make a number of statements wholly untethered to reality on a range of critical issues. And then he goes on, and this is a great opportunity for Oliver Darcy to get the digs in on Trump, that he is disappointed Welker didn't. So we're going to stop right there, take a break. We're not going to stop on this quite yet. So bear with me, because like I said, I've been kind of giddy to get on the air to talk about this. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. Thank you again for joining us here on Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox, I'm your host, Frank Ake. I'm broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. So we're talking about this piece by Oliver Darcy at CNN. And I know I'm probably maybe spending too much time on it, but it's to give you an example of a couple different things when we're dealing with the media and something to be prepared for as you watch the coverage leading up to the presidential election in 2024. Because this person, Kristen Welker, decides to give their term would be platform, but give an opportunity for the number one candidate in the Republican primary to come on her show, Meet the Press, that is a punishable offense number one. That's when you start to attack her. Then if she didn't attack him thoroughly, and Oliver Darcy and many other in the media's eyes, then the long knives continue to come out. I could see a scenario where it could end up costing her job, especially if she makes a mistake again, because you're not supposed to give him any opportunity to reach the American people, because they made that mistake last time with the rally. So I continue. Mr. President, let me ask you this question, please. She pleaded at one point. It was a low moment in Welker's otherwise pristine career. So now her whole career is in jeopardy because of this interview. And it's sure to have consequences for the storied Sunday public affairs show, given that Welker's debut was NBC's new chance to refresh the program and to define what they felt their role is. Remember, the role is no longer to report. What role they will serve in the 2024 election. So does that mean attack dog on Trump? Of course it does. But does it mean attack dog on any Republican nominee or anybody that ends up with the nomination? So they did not clearly define their role, which in Oliver Darcy and many others in the media's mind, that should have been, we're going to go after Donald Trump. While the episode will likely, and keep in mind, he said, it'll have consequences for the storied Sunday public affairs program. This is sending out a threat to other programs, Sunday morning programs. You better not have Trump on, because not only are we now questioning your new host, we are also questioning your program, your storied program. While the episode will likely see better than usual ratings, because, why would that be? Because of the debut of Welker, of course, having an interview with Trump, side note. It is a fair bet that the manner in which she executed the Trump sit-down will have alienated a not insignificant swath of the audience. CNN, for instance, Oliver Darcy's old company, still they cannot drop this, saw a tsunami of criticism wash over the network in the wake of its also disastrous. So now that episode was disastrous. See how this all works out? It's like Mad Libs with these people. Town Hall with Trump this spring, and the network is still trying to win back viewers. That's what your viewing problem is. That's but your ratings problem is that one interview at CNN. I just want to understand Oliver Darcy's mindset. That's where your ratings really went down the tubes. This is more of an interview, or this is more of a topic that I could have about 3 hours on. So I'm going to have to move on. But so he talks about Trump for just a moment and says, and newsrooms continue to struggle with how to cover him. Well, how have they covered him so far? It hasn't been positive. And isn't it supposed to be to cover the candidate? I would think it's arguable that at this juncture, there really is no need to interview Trump. There's another flare going up to the media saying, we don't have to give him a platform. We don't like him.